Oscar was wandering around the landfill, peering into the piles of garbage, hoping to see something useful there. He was a handsome, strong man, about 50 years old. His clothes were modest but clean. His hair was combed, and his beard was neatly trimmed. The man had a huge bag in his hands and a wooden stick, which was his main tool. The landfill was his place of work. That's how the man earned his living. Hundreds of homeless people dug around the landfill, looking for all kinds of treasures, such as rare items, silver, furniture, appliances, and even gold jewelry. Oscar sold everything that was of any value. Raking up a mountain of garbage, the man noticed a book that was wrapped in a plastic bag. This could be useful for kindling, he thought, and threw it into his bag. It was the middle of fall, and it was already quite cold where Oscar lived. The man stayed in an abandoned brick shed not far from the landfill. He insulated the walls with mattresses he found in the landfill, and built a stove that heated the room. He also used it to cook food and heat water. As long as he had firewood, he could survive the cold winter. Oscar used to be a carpenter once, back when he still had a family. Unfortunately, his wife Nadine was a conniving and devious woman. All she wanted from Oscar was his money and a place to live. So when the factory where he worked went bankrupt and the man lost his job, his family didn't want him anymore. His daughter grew up a copy of her mother. She didn't respect or care about her father. Eventually, Oscar asked for a divorce. Nadine said that he was free to leave, but she would sue him for the apartment. The man simply packed his things and left, letting his wife and daughter keep everything. The daughter never once expressed a desire to stay in touch with him. At first, Oscar worried a lot about it, but over time, he simply accepted his new reality. The man lived with a friend for some time, until he found the shed, which he made into his home, as well as the landfill, which he saw as his job. Oscar often thought of Natalie, a girl he dated for a long time in high school. Their feelings were very sincere, and they got along great. But one day, he got a strange call, and some woman told him that Natalie was cheating on him. She said that he could see it for himself, and then she told him where to go and when. Oscar saw Natalie with another young man. He got so mad that he didn't even want to ask what was going on, but simply left for another city. He never heard from Natalie again. The man decided to light the stove. He took the book he found at the landfill to start the fire. Inside, there was a lottery ticket that was used as a bookmark by the previous owner. Having examined the ticket, Oscar realized that it was new, and that the lottery draw would take place in a couple of days. The man put the ticket back inside the book and took out a couple of old magazines for kindling instead. Oscar got a visit from David, an acquaintance he made a few months ago under some rather unusual circumstances. Oscar saw the man on a railway bridge. He was about to end his life. David's parents suddenly died, one after another, and then his wife died too. The man simply couldn't cope with so much grief and decided to end it all. Oscar managed to dissuade David from taking that drastic step. He simply invited the man to talk. He listened attentively, provided support, and that changed David's mind about committing suicide. Ever since then, David came to see Oscar regularly, considering him his savior and friend. That day, David was in a good mood. He was even smiling. It made Oscar happy because it meant that David was getting better. "Now, let's have some tea," Oscar said, and went to heat up some water. Walking around the shed, David noticed the book lying on the table and the lottery ticket sticking out of it. "David, did you decide to try your luck?" He made a joke. "I found it in a landfill." Oscar brushed him off. David looked at the ticket and exclaimed, "My friend, the drawing was yesterday." "So what?" Oscar answered indifferently. "What do you mean, so what?" "You need to check the results." "Well, go ahead, check them if you want to." David took out his phone and started typing. Oscar saw the man's face change. "What happened to you? What is it?" the man asked. "I don't even know how to tell you. It looks like you've become a millionaire. This ticket hit the jackpot." The expression on David's face made it obvious that he wasn't kidding. Oscar started sweating profusely. "This money will last you until the end of your life, your children's lives, and even your grandchildren's lives. Why don't I see any joy on your face?" Oscar sighed. Maybe the real owner of this ticket is looking for it. What if this ticket was their last hope, and they accidentally threw it away? "This money isn't mine, so I don't want it." David looked at Oscar with a smile. "Why am I not surprised? You're an incredible person, and I'm very grateful to have you in my life." David patted Oscar on the shoulder. "So now we need to find the owner of the ticket." "But how do we do it?" Oscar was surprised. "It might be easier than you think," David replied, leafing through the book. At the end of the book, there was an envelope with an old letter that had an address on it. The next day, Oscar put himself in order and went by the address indicated on the envelope. A young woman opened the door for him. "I'm sorry, this might be strange, but did you happen to lose a book?" Hearing about the book, the woman perked up. "I did!" She said the name of the book, what it looked like, and even quoted the inscription on the back. "This book belonged to my mother. My daughter is learning to read, and we were reading this book in the evenings. And then it simply disappeared." The woman also mentioned the lottery ticket, but only as a distinctive feature, to prove the book was really hers. "Well, in this case, I need to talk to you," the man said. The woman was surprised, but let the man inside. Oscar said that the lottery ticket in the book was a winning one. Emily, that was the woman's name, couldn't believe it. Not so much the fact that her ticket had won the lottery, but that the man who found the book and knew about the jackpot didn't just take the money, but went looking for its rightful owner instead. "I don't even know how to thank you. Let's share the winnings. It would only be fair," she suggested. "No, don't worry about it. I don't need anything," Oscar answered modestly. As he left, the man experienced great relief. However, something was bothering him. Emily seemed very familiar, as if he knew her, and he couldn't shake off this feeling. A week later, Oscar decided to pay Emily and her daughter another visit. After their first encounter, the woman said that he was now a friend of their family and that he could come by and visit whenever he felt like it. This time, Oscar brought David with him. Emily was glad to see them both. She escorted the guests into the living room and then went into the kitchen to make tea. It was then that Oscar noticed a photo of Natalie. "Emily, who is this woman?" the man asked. "This is my mother. She died a few years ago." "And what about your father?" "I never knew my father." Oscar was lost in his thoughts for the rest of the day. "What's wrong with you, buddy? You don't look like yourself," David asked him. "After I first met Emily, I couldn't shake off that feeling that I knew her from somewhere. And now she turned out to be Natalie's daughter. We loved each other, but we broke up over something stupid. This is gonna sound crazy, which is why I don't want to say anything to Emily yet, but I feel like she could be my daughter." David looked at Oscar in surprise. "I just feel it, you know? Is there any way to check if it's true?" "You can do a DNA test. Just one strand of Emily's hair would be enough for it," David answered. "Don't worry, we'll think of something," the man reassured Oscar. Oscar and David came to Emily's place to go for a walk in the park together. When Emily was distracted, David discreetly pulled a couple of hairs from the woman's comb. A DNA test showed that Oscar really was Emily's father. Now, the man had to tell her everything. He was nervous because he didn't know how she would take such news. After listening to what Oscar had to say, Emily started crying and threw herself on Oscar's neck. "I never thought I would find my father, and even more so, I'm so glad that it turned out to be you," she said through tears. They talked for a long time. Oscar confessed to Emily that he was essentially homeless, living in an abandoned barn and earning his living in a landfill, where he found the book. "I bought a big house and we're moving in next month. You are my father, my daughter's grandfather, so I want you to come live with us," the woman said. Oscar tried to refuse the offer, but Emily did not want to hear it. Now, Oscar was a father and grandfather, and he was truly happy. Meanwhile, David and Emily took a liking to each other from the moment they met, and a relationship quickly developed between them, which Oscar was very happy about. He knew that David was a wonderful man, and that his daughter would have a great life with him. One day, Oscar was taking a walk with his granddaughter in the park when he heard a familiar voice. It belonged to a homeless woman begging for alms. He came closer and saw that it was his ex-wife, Nadine. Her appearance made it obvious that she had an alcohol abuse problem. Much to Oscar's surprise, she decided to apologize to the man. She said that she was wrong in the way he treated him and admitted that their daughter wasn't actually Oscar's biological child. She cheated on him with a manager of a construction company, and he was the real father of her daughter. "I'm sorry, but don't worry. Fate has already punished both me and my daughter," the woman finished. Oscar replied that he didn't hold a grudge against them and never even thought about getting back at them. He took out a rather large bill and gave it to Nadine. Then he picked up his granddaughter and went home, where Emily and David were waiting for them. They were already married and expecting twins.